Hello everyone. Today we are going to learn about the lesson The Great Scientists, Unit 2, Lesson 2.7, Standard 7. Here you can see a slide of Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam with the writer of the book with Srijan Pal Singh. Here you can see a slide of Humphrey Davy and Michael Faraday. Here you can see James Clerk Maxwell and William Hyde Wollaston. Great scientists are persevering and never deterred by difficulties. Here you can see a slide where it's mentioned he is known as the father of electromagnetism, and he created the first transformer. He left school at the age of 13, and here you can see at the other picture you can see the Faraday cage. Michael Faraday was a British chemist and physicist who contributed significantly to the study of electromagnetism and electrochemistry. He was born on the 22nd September 1791 and died on 25th August 1867 in the UK. His awards were the Copley Medal, Royal Society, Bodleian Medal, Royal Medal, Rumford Medal and Albert Medal. He was known for all the work that is given below, for all the things that he has invented. Humphrey Davy, he was an English chemist who discovered several chemical elements including sodium, potassium, calcium, barium, chlorine, iodine, etc., and compounds like borons, strontium, magnesium, etc. He was born on 17 December 1778 in the UK and died on 29th May 1829 in Switzerland. The awards that he had received were the Copley Award, Medal, the Royal Medal and the Rumford Medal. Here you can see some of his inventions. Faraday and Davy at work and Faraday explaining to an audience. Let's get to the lesson. Michael Faraday is regarded as one of the most distinguished scientists and inventors of modern times, and his work on electricity is still a subject of study in the form of Faraday's laws. But few know his inspirational life story, which is all about courage and fighting against the odds. He was born into a poverty-stricken family in a dirty London suburb. He suffered from a speech defect as a child. He would pronounce rabbit as wabbit. He could not even say his own name and would call himself Faraday. Other children teased him. Even his teachers did not help him. Thus, an end of his formal education. Here you can find the difficulties. Not only was he poor, but also he had a speech defect which had ceased his education. He had to stop his education since he had faced many difficulties. Even at school, nobody seeming to help him. And thus, his mother stopped his education. At the age of 13, however, he started to work as a bookbinder, binding hundreds of books and staying all night reading. Thus, reading became his obsession. Binding of books is, in olden days, especially in the 80s, 70s and the 80s, you could books were bound together so that they lasted long and they did not tear with a use, and it was used for many years at an end. Since he worked as a bookbinder, he always kept reading books and that became his obsession. One day he came across a book on electricity which had been sent to his master for binding. He started reading it and was completely hooked. Soon he was fascinated with the subject. Faraday was still poor at 21. Once a friend gave him a free ticket to a public lecture and demonstration by the renowned chemist Humphrey Davy at London's Royal Institution. Davy's work on chemicals and electrical lightning was a subject of conversation among the scientists. 70 years later, across the Atlantic Ocean in the USA, the same work enabled Thomas Alva Edison to produce the first consistent light bulb. It was because of his Davy's invention. The first light bulb, consistent one which could glow continuously. Consistent means one which could glow continuously, could be lit up continuously. So even at 21, he was very poor. But then a friend gave him a ticket to this lecture, public lecture given by Humphrey Davy. So he attended it and he was um, very enthralled. He was really very happy that he attended such a lecture. In 1812, Faraday was spellbound by Davy's lecture. He kept taking notes about the mysterious force of electric fluid. He was so engrossed in the lecture that he forgot to applaud. Faraday's notes were so comprehensive that he bound them into a book, meaning to give to Davy some day. Faraday wanted to be a scientist, and Davy had become his role model. But he faced a huge problem. He did not have the social status, money, or nor the education to pursue science. Davy did not accept Faraday as his student initially, but destiny had a strange plan in store for him. A few years later, a chemical explosion happened inside Davy's lab and was temporarily blinded. Now he needed an assistant who had an excellent memory and also who knew the subject well. Davy never believed that Faraday, with such education and social status, could do anything at all. Faraday soon became indispensable to Davy and was promoted as lab assistant. His new job was cleaning labs. At least he got to see some of Davy's leading experiments. Here in this paragraph, we come to know that as Davy was working on a particular subject like the mysterious force of electric fluid, he was so engrossed. That was the lecture that was Davy giving in the public place in a session. And Faraday took down notes, every possible note he could write down on that particular lecture. And then it was so very in detail that he felt that one day he would gift it to Davy, telling him or to tell him that how detailedly he has worked on this subject. So he said that one day he will bind it together and gift it to Davy himself. He wanted to become a scientist, Faraday, but he had faced, as we know, that he had faced a huge problem of money, education, status. In those days, especially even when you want to work as a scientist, you need either a backup, a sponsor by somebody, or you should have a good amount of money to spend on that experiment, and which Davy did not have. Davy did not accept Faraday as a student initially. So when he went to ask Davy about it, he did not accept him. But a couple of years later, an incident took place where Davy was temporarily blinded. But now he could not stop his work, but he had to continue, and but he could not see as such. Now he needed an assistant, and that's when he thought of Davy, because he had worked completely or every detail of that subject Faraday knew pretty well. But he had to give a second thought on it, Davy, as he was not educated, as he did not have social status, neither the money. But somehow he was taken in as his assistant, because there was nobody else who had worked very closely or had monitored Davy's work. And thus, Faraday became very indispensable, became a very close person with all the experiments of Davy, and he was promoted as lab assistant. And here, as a lab assistant, his basic work was to clean the lab after Davy's experiments. Even then, Davy did not have much hope for Faraday. Later, he got another chance to prove himself. One day, Davy tried to recreate a famous electromagnetism experiment with a fellow chemist, William Wollaston, exploring why, when an electric current is applied to a wire, it causes the wire to behave like a magnet. Obviously, the forces were connected, but nobody had figured out how to make it happen continuously. He then teased Faraday, asking him to try his hand at it after he was done cleaning the lab. Davy, he was trying an experiment which did not go well, and with William Wollaston. So Davy kind of teased Faraday, saying that, why don't you try this experiment after you finish cleaning the lab? Within a few days, Faraday solved the problem. In fact, he went further, and the result was the first induction motor, which converted electrical current into continuous mechanical motion. The induction motor spurred a revolution, like fans, air conditions, sewing machines, photographs, power tools, cars, trains, and even aeroplane engines grew out of this simple device, which was born out of mockery, directed at Faraday. He became a celebratory scientist overnight. Nobody now cared about his social status or education. This man created a revolution. Davy was jealous of Faraday's success. People started telling Davy that of all discoveries, the best was Faraday himself. An angry Davy gave Faraday an impossible task to keep him out of the way. He handed him a piece of Bavarian glass, which was used in the lenses in telescopes and microscopes, and asked him to reverse engineer it. Bavarian glass was manufactured by a secret, complicated process, and Davy knew that with the equipment available in the lab, Faraday would never be able to accomplish the task. So, overnight, Faraday became a success. He became a celebrity. Now, nothing mattered. So, when you are very successful in life, nothing matters whether you have got a good education degree, or you are rich, or do you have a social status, do you know important people. That does not matter. But yes, in today's world, not that we do not need education, but his state was like that. But overnight he became a success, and Davy was really very jealous of him. So now he wanted, so that if Faraday should not do something else better than him, so he gave him a complicated task. He said, now take this Bavarian glass and reverse engineer it. And Davy very well knew that he will never be able to do it with especially the equipments that are available in the lab. Faraday had a never give up attitude, and he respected Davy. So he accepted the assignment despite knowing excuse me, that it would be very difficult. He toiled for 4 years with no help from Davy, and as expected, failed. Faraday never learned the secret, and this remained his first failure as a scientist. To remind himself of these difficult times, he kept a single glass brick on his shelf as a souvenir. This would inspire him during difficult times. So, in this paragraph, he tells that Faraday has had this attitude to never give up, come what may, and never would he give up. He knew that his master was checking on him, but he respected his master Davy. So he accepted the assignment which was given to him, knowing very well that he is not going to succeed in it. And but he toiled, he worked very hard for 4 years with no help from Davy. And as expected, he did fail in that experiment. So one day what he did, he took this particular piece of glass and kept it on a shelf as a souvenir, so that it would remind him of his failure, and which would also inspire him to do better, especially during difficult times. In 1829, Davy died, and Faraday succeeded him as head of the laboratory. He was free to pursue whatever he liked, and he made another revolutionary discovery. He noticed that if he moved a magnet, it could produce electrical current. Thus, he could now convert motion into electricity. This is how the electrical generator was born, something still used today to generate all kinds of power like dynamos and other devices. In 1840, Faraday developed a memory loss, which continued for the rest of his life. But the disease did not stop him. He persevered, starting a complicated experiment to prove that light was closely related to electricity and magnetism, a novel thought in those times. So he did start an experiment after the death of Davy. He took on the lab, and now he could do anything in the lab. He could do any kind of experiments, as he became the owner of that particular lab. And remember that piece of Bavarian glass. Faraday was determined to convert the remainder of his first major failure to an instrument of great success. So, as we had spoken in the two previous paragraphs, saying that any difficulty, he had kept that Bavarian glass as a motivation for him, and that particular glass he used over here to create something else, and which became a success. He used the same glass now to show that in the presence of a magnet, light could be isolated into a single wave rather than spreading out randomly in all directions, a concept called polarization. He then took the age old experiment of sprinkling iron filings on a sheet of paper near a magnet, making circular patterns. He went on to prove that these patterns were not a property of the iron filings. In fact, they were due to the invisible magnetic fields that fill the empty space around the magnet and hence disturb the filings. Here in the next paragraph, we see this is where his lack of formal education went against him. Since, as we know, that he did not have formal education, the basic education, even that's why he failed at some places. Let's see now what happened. Faraday made hundreds of drawings, but without equations, they were never accepted in the scientific world. So you need to explain those to the other scientists with equations. Fortune favored the brave. Faraday once met James Maxwell, a wealthy educated physicist, well versed in mathematics. He was willing to work with Faraday's idea into a set of equations that are now called Maxwell's equations, because it was Maxwell who had converted those things into equations and had noted it down for Faraday, and that's why it's named that. Their combined work has helped us in many ways. Electronics and communication systems today are designed around their discoveries. Someday we might even be able to communicate with aliens across different galaxies using the products of these discoveries. At last, Faraday's life started with difficulties, but as a great scientist, he met each difficulty with perseverance and conviction. He was given impossible tasks, which he undertook as challenges and opportunities. He epitomizes what the Walt Disney character Pinocchio said: "When you wish upon a star, it does not matter who you are." So, very true that when you wish something, when you want to aim something in life, it does not matter who you are. So, this lesson will teach us that come what difficulties in our life, every step of our life, we might face difficulties, but that difficulty should not stop us from achieving what we want to achieve, success. Yes, thank you. And not miss all the challenges or the opportunities. Pick up all the challenges and the opportunities which will polish us into a better person. Thank you.